Center will be Lisa Rowe.
Yeah, I think it's me.
I'm gonna tackle this, although my pronunciation of French may not be the best. Université de Pau at the Pays de la Dor in France.
Yeah.
And she will be talking to us about, do children dream of connected watches? How connected citizens experience the world. So thank you, Lisa. And with that, I will turn it over to you and you can start your presentation.
Yeah. Je partage mon écran. Youp, youp, youp. You can see it?
There we go.
Ok. Et maintenant, je fais hop, hop, hop. Non, je vois pas avec le truc. Hop. Comment je fais pour le lancer? C'est bête, hein. Mais en fait, comme... Attends. C'est là. Sorry. With the...
Overlay.
Ah, c'est... Ah non, non. Voilà. Hop. It's good?
Yes, it's good.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much. My presentation is called Do Children Dream of Connected Watches? How the Connected Citizens Experience the World. My main concern is what place should be given to artificial intelligence in our society. In this presentation, I focus on the power relations established by the interactions of mainstream connected devices with their users, because I think that many ethical issues studied by the philosophers are linked to the power relations that objects may have over us. So, of course, a first step is to study the connected object itself, its own materiality, its algorithmic mechanisms, its functionalities. Then what I precisely want to examine here is its relationship with humans. To start with, let's see what connected object is and if it is different in form or in nature from the technical objects we are used to. First remark is that I want to make on this subject is that most of everyday life connected objects are based on existing non-connected objects. We have watches, pillows, cat litter, etc. All of that existed in a non-connected version. Some connected objects are new objects, but for example, voice assistants, connected headbands to facilitate sleep, object trackers, etc. Before, we didn't talk to robots at home. We didn't put headbands before sleeping, but it's less usual. So what differentiates all these objects from the unconnected object of which they seem to be an evolution? First, they have a specific materiality. They resemble not connected objects, but they are equipped with a certain number of elements of the transmitter-receiver type and have capacities enabling them to dialogue remotely with other objects. Regarding the functionalities, the connected objects have the same functionalities as the original non-connected objects. You can always check the time on your connected watch, sleep comfortably on your connected pillow, look at yourself in the connected mirror, but they add new functionalities, often independent of the functionality of the original object, and of a different nature. For example, counting the number of steps, calories, sleep cycles, loading content related to the user's interest, etc. Thus, connected objects are specific both because of their materiality and their new functionalities. Now, let's examine, let's examine the impact of these functionalities on the human-object relationship. these additional functionalities introduced by the connected object compared to the original non-connected object allow new uses, which I called here sediment uses because they overlapped each other and overlap the original use. So they overlap each other in successive layers. In order to study more precisely the attribution of roles, it is interesting to examine the different sediment uses. I have identified 4 main categories. First, receiving alerts. These are notifications, vibration, ringtones, etc., sent to users by connected objects to notify them of an event, switched reached during a sporting activity, email received, intrusion into the home, program ended, etc. Second, obtaining information about one's environment or oneself. 2 types of information may be involved. Information generally of a quantitative nature that the user could obtain alone, for example, by going to check themselves. For example, connected diapers indicate the state of the baby's diapers. You can go and check yourself. Second, information generally quantitative, hardly accessible or inaccessible by the user alone. The number of steps taken during the days, the distance between 2 strides, the duration of sleep cycles, etc. 3, receiving recommendations. These may include, for example, watches and scales that establish sport programs adapted to the user's objectives and physical characteristics, or pressure cookers offering recipes and precise instructions, according to the user's food states. And 4, organizing the remote environment, either automatically or on command. This is, for example, the progressive luminosity emitted by the mirror at the scheduled time of waking up, or the toilet seat preheated before it's used by the user. I think it is important to note that the various sediment uses that a connected object allows can sometimes be deactivated. You can disable a ringtone, a notification, the sending of personalized recommendations, etc., or ignored. For example, the user can choose to ignore the tab allowing the use, but it is not always possible. For example, it is not possible to disable step counting on the smartwatch, so the number appears when you look at your watch. Thus, connected objects encourage and sometimes force new uses. Of course, connected devices are not the only type of objects which can emit alerts, provide information, or allow the environment to be organized remotely. These uses are also found in certain non-connected technical objects. Receiving alerts is the most widespread use among everyday objects, whether for the main use, for example, being warned in the event of a fire, or a secondary use, for example, being warned when the microwave task ends. The main use of the microwave is to reheat of a dish. These are most often ringtones or light signals, diode, light symbols, etc. Obtaining information is also a widespread use, and for the objects concerned, this is generally their main, if not only use. You can think of a cuckoo that clocks, a cuckoo clock, that rings every hour. This is probably the oldest use, notably when we use the weather vane or clock. Finally, the organization of the remote environment is an expanding use. More and more, we find the sediment uses noted in connected objects among the uses of non-connected technical objects. For example, the food processor able to cook food, write it, give instruction, ring when the task is complete. Connected object made it possible to introduce, with the development of machine learning and the massive collection of data, a new use, which is providing personalized recommendation. And I think that is the specific use makes a significant break from our habitual objects. Yep. Most connected objects combine several segment uses. For example, the thermostat can be controlled remotely and provides room temperature information, or the connected diaper alerts the user when the diaper is full and details the state of the diaper in real time. But the objects that provide personalized recommendations and sometimes the automatic organization of the remote environment must integrate machine learning algorithm, making them able, by collecting and processing data related to the user behavior, to automatically adapt to them. They differ from connected objects that only allow requests to be managed remotely through the application, a voice assistant, etc. Yet, connected objects equipped with such systems are increasingly developed. You can think of a digital kitchen board that suggests recipes resembling those that the user has already liked, or a pillow that can provide its user with personalized advice on how to improve their sleep. For example, recommending that they go to bed at a fixed time or earlier, based on the data it collects on their bedtimes. The functions performed by connected object in connection with its sediment use are varied and closely related to the roles played by the objects. Let's take the example of a connected watch. A connected watch has many functionalities, such as showing the time, proposing sport programs, measuring physiological data, displaying mails, notifying of new messages, etc. The user can take advantage of all these functionalities, but some users choose to use only a part of them in a way or another. For example, the user could take very seriously the data provided by the watch, perhaps to the extent that they need to get the information to evaluate their performance, their health, their activity, or they could just regard this data as the indicative information without really taking it into account. Or they also may not be interested at all in the data shown by the watch and pay no attention to them, using their watch only to know the time or maybe check their mails. So the roles are shared depending on these uses. The role establishment should provide us with indications regarding the power relationship. The question of power does not just concern the human-object relationship, but also the relationship of the human to their environment. The use of connected objects is supposed to give humans more control over themselves and their environment. In marketing speeches, the fact that connected objects allow more control over oneself or the environment is a recurring selling point. It is interesting to examine what kind of control is increased there. Control may refer to 1, verification and monitoring activity, and 2, a state of mastery, of domination. The 2 may require the 1, but it is not only necessary. In particular, the work of Michel Foucault has shown that domination can be exercised through the dissemination of norms instead of the implementation of surveillance devices. Similarly, the 1 does not automatically lead to 2. For example, watching over their child does not guarantee that the parent is in control of their behavior. These 2 points should be carefully examined because precisely connected objects are constituted as surveillance devices and as instruments that enable the user, through the knowledge that they allow them to acquire, to control their environment. The first observation that can be made is that the sediment use receiving alerts and obtaining information on the environment make it possible to strengthen surveillance. 2 is closely linked to the question of power. It is therefore important to distinguish between the concept of power and that of domination. I rely here on the definition of Max Weber. Power means any chance of imposing one's own will within a social relationship, even against resistance, no matter what this chance is based on. Domination must mean the chance of finding obedience with certain people for a command of certain content. So, to a certain extent, by intensifying surveillance, the connected objects increase their users' knowledge of themselves or their environment, thus their chance of imposing their will and reinforce their dominance. This information makes it possible to increase the monitoring of a given object, distant or not from the other. In some cases, they also promote control. To increase control, monitoring must meet several conditions. First, allowing an understanding of the situations based on true and sufficient information. Distorted, approximate, or too partial information can disrupt the assessment of the situation and decision-making through the constitution of an adapted problem solving strategy. Second, having the means necessary to apply these decisions. For example, power of persuasion, coercive power, etc. Thus, video surveillance of one's apartment make it possible to increase control of it, because being able to observe an undesirable intrusion is sufficient to adopt a behavior allowing to solve the problem, such as notifying the police. Similarly, with the connected boys, the human retains control over the food of their animal, their pet. The user is the one who defines the programs, times and quantities delivered to the pet by the ball. Weight control is a more complex issue, insufficiently understandable through the collected data, which is neither sufficient nor always true, and which monitoring can itself be disturbing. Finally, knowing where your partner is does not guarantee that you will be able to control their move. Concerning the weight control, it would seem that the effect are even sometimes the opposite. Studies have shown, for example, that individuals equipped with connected objects aimed at helping them lose weight had worse results than those who did not have them, which can be explained by different factors. For example, when incentives differ radically from the user's perception, they are likely to increase anxiety and dependence of the device, resulting in loss of motivation in case of absence. Studies have enlightened, notably, that in the case where the perception that the individuals have of their body or their behavior differ from the result provided by the object, the tension can hinder the construction of meaning and the ability to human to learn from their experience, thus generates act of coercion or even cause psychological disorders. In addition, many factors, social, psychological, etc., can hinder the individual's ability to carry out their decision. Thus, if connected objects can significantly increase verification and monitoring activities, They do not guarantee the control and domination of states, and can even have opposite effects. In particular, it seems that one, the sediment use organizing the environment from a distance makes it possible to increase the power of human over the object, at least when it is done on order. And the sediment use obtaining information can allow humans to increase their power over their environment, particularly when the controlled object is inert. This sediment use may also not allow to increase control or even decrease it, in particular because tenfold surveillance exercised over a living individual can lead to the adoption of resistance behaviors on the part of this individual. Other mechanisms can also affect the power exercised by humans over their environment and themselves. Indeed, the study of rules has shown that the object could acquire power over the human. For example, the object giving orders executed by the humans. It therefore seems relevant to wonder what type of control is held by the object. That is what is to be examined now. Sorry. According to the Gartner report, connected object capture and use data whose granularity is increasingly fine in order to influence individual behavior. My hypothesis is that the power exerted by the object on the human comes from the combination of several sediment uses. For example, we observe that the sediment use obtaining information can increase the power of the object over the human. For example, the human takes more steps when equipped with a watch that counts the steps. A fortiori when coupled with the sediment use receiving recommendations. Collecting their data, it provides answers and imposes itself as the narrator of their behaviors, their physiological reactions, and their needs. The use receiving alerts makes the object able to impose its rhythm to the human. It is in particular the object allowing these three sediment uses that interest me here, because this ability to make a retroactive account of the activity of its user and to offer them personalized advice according to this account grants them of a power on the human. This is not a power that the object whose only sediment use is to organize the environment seems to have. By comparison, in the case of the connected ball, the object only applies the program decided by the human, and depending on the model, warns the user when the kibble tank is empty. It allows humans to exercise control over their pet's diet, even when they are away. The sediment use of the object is to organize its environment or even to receive alerts. The object here is a simple performer. The power of the object over its user does not appear at first sight to be coercive. It is able to offer rewards to its user, but does not punish them. The object does not have the material capacity to constrain its user. It is rather an incentive system. The nature of this power, therefore, seems to be authority. Authority is generally considered by sociologists as a legitimate power, which needs only a minimum of coercion to gain respect. Authority is based on the confidence that those who are submitted to it have in the holder of power, so that they welcome their opinion, their suggestion, or their injunction with respect, favor, or at least without hostility or resistance, and that they are willing to comply. Authority is therefore a rational concept articulated around the notion of trust, because it is from this trust that it derives its legitimacy. The legitimacy of the authority of the connected object is based on three elements enlightened in marketing speeches. First, it is able to provide humans with reliable information, inaccessible to them, and with a precision that they cannot claim to obtain by themselves. Second, this information is deemed to relate to the determined factors of mastery of the measuring object, sleep, weight, etc. Three, mastery of the measured object is desirable or even necessary. So as long as these elements are considered true by the user, the authority of the object can be exercised. The belief of one is a fundamental part of the user's confidence in object. Belief in 2 and 3 allows the object to acquire recognition of its usefulness by humans. By virtue of its supposed expertise and the importance of having access to its expertise for control, a value deemed important in maintaining or increasing individual well-being, the object acquires human recognition, and its recommendations are perceived as having to be followed. The object, therefore, does not need coercive mechanisms to exercise its power. It is the desire to increase their well-being, even the feeling of duty, which drives humans and inclines them to follow the recommendation of the object. I think that what makes these elements really true is the appearance of scientificity of the information provided by the object. Unfortunately, I do not have time to explain here why this is not only in most cases, this is only in most cases an appearance. But before ending this presentation, I am setting you the 3 aspects of these objects that give this impression of scientificity. There are dataisms, which is defined by José van Dijk as being a widespread belief in the objective quantification and potential tracking of all kinds of human behavior and society through online media technologies. 2, the fact that objects are equipped with a variety of sensors, a large part of which echoes representations associated with the scientific word, sensor temperature, not thermometers, it really says sensor temperature, heart rate measurement of sleep cycles, etc. And 3, and finally, the fact that they are based on simple and apparently coherent, relevant scientific models shared by a large part of the population. For example, the fact that the weight depends on the number of calories eaten and the number of calories expended. The quality of and also, for example, the quality of sleep linked to the duration cycles, etc. All of these contribute to a general impression of reliability, seriousness, scientificity that reinforces the confidence attributed to the user to their connected object. So I have explained that I identified 4 categories of uses that can be made of connected object: receiving alerts, receiving personalized recommendations, obtaining environmental information, and organizing the environment. The combination of the 3 first uses provides the connected object with power among the users, which consists in a form of authority. This authority is grounded of the appearance of scientificity, which I think should be precisely criticized. And the power of humans on the environment or themselves can be increased in certain cases, notably by the use organizing their environment, but can have the opposing effect. The opposing effects, for example, by causing resistance. So further work is needed to precisely assess the epistemic value of recommendations, the studies of scientificity of the recommendations made by the connected object, and study the ethical consequences of these power relationships. I think in particular to the loss of free will and individual autonomy, impair control and dependence control, responsabilization of individual, over responsabilization of individual and incitation to individualism, etc. Thank you very much for your attention.